Hey everybody, welcome. It's been a crazy week and we're gonna kick off tonight's menu with a steakhouse steak. So if you guys have been missing your favorite steakhouse while you've been home, we're gonna teach you how to do that steakhouse quality meal right here at home. So we're gonna prepare ribeye tonight, which is one of my favorite steaks. It's super tender, it's got good flavor, it's got a nice beefy flavor. And then one of the things that we always like to look at when we're looking for a good ribeye, when we're selecting one, is marbling. And marbling are those small deposits of fat that you can see that are just randomly throughout the meat. That's gonna give it really good taste and flavor. And we're gonna do it a simple seasoning method of just kosher salt first. We're gonna allow that to permeate. The reason we're using kosher salt is because kosher salt has edges to it, and those edges actually start to cut through the protein a bit and help permeate into the meat. So we get a nice flavorful bite with every bite because the salt's going all the way through the steak. So we're gonna season our steak with kosher salt. And we're gonna do both sides. Let's flip that over. And we'll go right on that side just with flaky kosher salt. Now we're gonna build flavor at the end because we're gonna finish it with a compound butter. So I'm gonna sit this steak to the side, let it rest for a little while. That salt's gonna start to do its job. It's also going to help develop that nice crusty top that we want. The salt is gonna be a major contributor to that. So for our compound butter and wine, which I'm going to have, it's been a super crazy week. So I'm gonna pour myself a glass because we're gonna work with wine tonight. I've got some butter that is super soft. This is half a pound of butter, about 2 sticks. And you can see how nice and soft and creamy the butter is. That's exactly what we want to build the compound butter. We're gonna flavor this butter, and then at the very end, once the steak is done, we're gonna top it with some of that compound butter. So what are we gonna add to that butter? We're gonna do some parsley, because parsley is nice and flavorful with a little citrus note to it. And you just wanna mince this guy up. There we go. All right, parsley minced. Grab our butter back, right into the bowl. Next, we're going to add garlic. I've already peeled the garlic. There's about 50,000 videos on how to peel garlic, so you guys can check that out. But I just want to give it a smash with the knife and go right through. We want a nice mince on it. So we want the garlic to be all through the butter. Get all these guys back together. It's smelling good already, and it's just garlic. We're off to a real good start with that. So garlic into the butter. We have a shallot. We're just gonna use 1 shallot. We're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna slice this guy up. Then we're gonna cross mince it so we get it nice and small. We want nice small pieces through the butter. It's gonna give it much more flavor that way. We won't have to do too much work on the steak because it's gonna bring so much flavor from the butter. All right. By mincing or chopping vegetables, it breaks them down and they release a lot more flavor because you've got a lot more surface area exposed. Okay, so I got the shallot nice and broken down. It's in a real good place. Right into that butter it goes. So I'll bring that back up front so you can see it. We've got garlic, parsley, and shallots in the butter. Now, the good thing about compound butter is once you make it, you can use it again and again and again in a lot of different dishes. We're not going to use nearly this much butter for the steak, but if we want to do some grilled chicken or bake some salmon, we've already got a nice compound butter ready to go. So we can just keep this in the freezer, slice off pieces as needed, and we'll go from there. Now I am going to grind up some seasoning, just a little simple seasoning blend that I actually like. It's got some coriander, some red pepper flakes, black peppercorns, all that's in there. So right in. A few generous turns. Give it a stir. Let's add a pinch of salt. Doesn't take a whole lot because we got a nice layer of salt on both sides of our steak. We're going to do this steak tonight with asparagus. So we're going to do a quick blanch on the asparagus and serve it with the steak. But we're going to dress it with a simple lemon and olive oil vinaigrette right over the top. It's going to add a nice bit of acid to it. Whenever you're eating something that's kind of high in fat or got a lot of fattiness to it, you need a little acid to balance it back out. Actually makes everything a little more flavorful that way. So the butter's done. We're going to set that to the side. Let's talk about asparagus for a second. Asparagus is in season now. First of the spring is just coming in. And if you notice, a lot of people like to trim off the part at the tip that's kind of stiff or woody. Sometimes it can be a little more woody than that. You could take a vegetable peeler, scrape that off if you wanted to, or if you don't want to cut it, the asparagus is designed to naturally break at the point where the tenderness begins. So all you have to do is snap it, comes right apart. This side you can save and use it to make a soup with, add it to a vegetable stock or something like that. But this is the nice tender part that you're going to cook. It's that easy. They all snap at about the same spot. So you can see our asparagus is easy to prepare that way because those tips snap right off and they're going to go right into a blanching liquid. Now for blanching, what you want is a pot of rolling boiling water. You want the water nice and hot. I'm going to crank up the temperature on it because I want it to come to a full boil.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
It should be salty like seawater. So you definitely want it to be nice and salty. So in goes the salt. We're not going to have to season it with any more salt once it's done because the water is going to be nice and salty. And I've got a few pieces here that I've already snapped. I'm going to do a couple more. There we go. They snap right off. And once this comes to a boil, I'm going to drop them in. Again, I want a rolling, boiling water for that asparagus to go in. So we'll let that heat up. Now for our steak, everyone loves cast iron cooking for steak. I'm a huge fan of cast iron cooking for steak. It's got that ability to rebound super fast. It stays hot. It's even cooking. So cast iron is the way to go. The only thing I'm going to add in this pan is a drizzle, a very light drizzle of vegetable oil to create a barrier. That barrier is going to allow that steak to really sear nice, and it's going to help aid in the crustiness of it. I'm going to warm that up a bit too, so we got everything going on about the same amount of time. Okay, so we got our rolling boiling water for blanching. We got our asparagus ready. This is a nice sized portion. We're going to go right in, let that do its thing. We're going to warm up a pan for the steak. The steak is going in next. Once we get the steak started, we're going to let it cook and start to do its thing. While that's happening, we're going to prepare a lemon olive oil vinaigrette to go over the asparagus once it's done. So, pan's nice and hot. All the little bit of oil that I put in there has moved around to the edges, which is great. We have our steak. The salt has permeated in. You can tell it's doing what it's supposed to do because it will make the part of the meat look real shiny and wet. That's what you want to look for. Presentation side in first. And don't touch it. That's the other thing, is that once you start cooking, go ahead and let the pan do the work. You want that nice crust to develop, so if you move it around too much or you flip it too many times, you're not going to get the crust that you want. We're going to go for about medium well cooked temperature. So once we flip this over, we're going to stick it in the oven and let it finish for about 5-10 minutes or so. So now to the vinaigrette. And we have our wine on deck. Oh, it's Friday. It's delicious. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take half a lemon. I'm just going to get all the juice out. If you get a little seed or something in there, it's not the end of the world. Just pluck it out. Okay? So we got one. I'm going to go ahead and toss this piece out because I don't need it. And I'm going to do the other half of the lemon. Because I have such a small amount of asparagus, I'm not going to use both the lemons. But if I was making a larger batch for 4 to 6 people, I would definitely use 2 lemons to do that with. So for a vinaigrette, you want 1 part of something acid, right? And that's going to be our lemon juice, to 2 parts of oil. And we're just going to take extra virgin olive oil, which is great for this, and just let it go in. The cool thing about extra virgin olive oil is the flavor that everybody likes. The one thing that people do that they probably shouldn't do is heat it up. If you're going to cook with olive oil, just cook with regular olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil breaks down really fast under heat. So you don't want to get it so hot, it's just going to destroy that flavor that you paid for. It's really for salads or dressings or finishing. Maybe for a pizza, if you wanted to drizzle a little olive oil over some pizza, that'd be great for extra virgin olive oil. So I've just got a fork here and I'm just going to whisk it to bring it together. I'm not looking for an emulsion or anything like that. I don't want to add anything into it to thicken it up. I just want it to be a true vinaigrette. Now I'm going to hit it with a little bit of seasoning. Our same pepper blend. Small pinch of salt. And that's about it. This is ready to go. And we're just going to spoon it lightly over the asparagus before serving. Great. We'll set that to the side. And I've got another little seasoning I'm going to put on top right before service as well. And we'll talk about that when we get to it. So, good shape here. Let's go back to steak. Oh, steak is doing just what it's supposed to do. It's searing, it's getting some flavor going. Once it's nice and brown on one side, we're going to flip it. Repeat on the other side. The asparagus. The asparagus is in great shape. You can see that? Nice bright green. Now traditionally, if we were going to serve this again later, or if we wanted to saute it, we would shock it in an ice bath to cool it down and stop the cooking. But we're going to serve this as part of the dinner, so we're going to plate it up, ready to go, just like that. It's going to continue to cook just a little bit, minimal amount of cooking remaining, but that's going to become part of the final dish. So I'm going to sit that right there, and we'll check our steak, see if it's time for the first turn. These parts. Oh yeah, we're getting a nice sear that we want. I'm going to flip the steak. Got really nice color on it. We're going to let it cook for the same amount of time on the other side, about 3 to 5 minutes, into the oven for finishing. When we're cooking it, we're going to want it to be the right amount of doneness, so we're going right for medium, right in the middle. So the best way to do that is the touch test. And the touch test is all about the resistance when you apply a little pressure to the steak. So if you take your first finger and your thumb, you make the OK sign, push here, and that's going to be medium rare. Second finger, light tap, medium. Third finger, tap again. You'll feel that muscle start to tighten up even more, and that's going to be medium well. By the time you get to your last finger or your pinky finger and thumb together, the muscle's nice and tight, and that's about as close to well done as you want to be. Anything past that, it's going to be dry, it's not going to have a lot of flavor, and it's just going to be kind of an overcooked piece of meat, so you won't have the best eating experience. It'll probably be very chewy. So the steak's doing what it's got to do. We're right in the middle of setting up everything. Everything is right where we need it to be. We've got our vinaigrette ready. I am going to slice a few thin slices of tomato just as a garnish because it's springtime and tomatoes are here. It also is going to help balance out the plate. So I just want a few thin slices of tomato. I really like tomato, but I don't like a big chunk of it. I like it really thin. So we got 3 nice slices of tomato. That's going to be sufficient for the dish that we're preparing. Come on, tomato. There we go. We're just going to put them on a plate like that until we finish plating up. Okay. 1. Excellent. It's a Il Conti wine also, so if you want to know what kind of wine it is, Il Conti. Okay, steak. Doing its magic. Oh yeah, we got great color on the second side as well. I'm not going to turn it again. I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees. And I'm going to take this whole pan and right into the oven it goes. Fire off and let it do its thing. Okay, so our steak is about ready to come out of the oven. It's been in there for about 5 additional minutes. We're going to do the touch test to make sure it's right where we want it at medium. I've gone ahead and plated up the tomatoes and the asparagus. And I'm just going to take a little of this vinaigrette. And I'm just going to sprinkle it right over the top of the asparagus. Hit a little on the tomatoes. That's nice. And then I've got a seasoning blend. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it's the same seasoning that goes on top of an everything bagel. It's got garlic, sea salt, onion. It's got some sesame seeds in it. We're just gonna add just a little bit of that over the top. That's gonna give some texture and another little bounce of flavor to the vinaigrette and the blanched asparagus. So let's grab the steak out. I did add a couple sprigs of rosemary to it while it was basting so that it could permeate and get some of that essence from the rosemary into the steak. I don't want an overwhelming rosemary flavor. I'm just going to take some of that and just baste it right back over the steak. This looks great. And I'm going to move this over. And we're going to go ahead and plate our ribeye. Oh wow, this looks great. Let's get the right side up. Right down it goes. Put the pan back. We're going to top it with some of our compound butter. Just a dollop of that compound butter right on top. That's going to melt in, give it a lot of richness and flavor. It's going to make every bite balanced. Make sure you let the steak rest after it cooks. It needs about 5 to 10 minutes for all the juices to re-permeate through the whole steak. You transferred a lot of energy into it by cooking it. Once you slice that first slice, if you slice it too soon, all the juice is going to run out. You're going to have a puddle on the plate, and the last bite won't be as good as the first bite. But to ensure in the end, nice juicy steak, allow it to rest. It only takes a few minutes for a steak this size. If it was larger, like a roast or something, you might want to go 15, 20 minutes. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's tonight's dinner. It looks great. Remember to turn on the notifications, like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know whatever it is you'd like to see, and we'll be sure to bring it to you from Feed Yourself Well. Have a good night, and thank you.